Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Call of Duty DraftKings Slate breakdown for March the 12th. Quickly, we can kind of just recap yesterday. Typically, what we like to do. We had a pretty bad day, all things considered. I was on the all triple underdog side of New York, Boston, and LAG. As you guys can tell by the results, only one of those three came in, so overall a pretty bad day. No matter how you shake it. Um, I'd honestly say, despite the poor performances, I think we actually had somewhat of a decent understanding and read on these teams. Maybe outside of the Florida LAG series, that one was pretty bad, but I think the thing here is, in hindsight, that there was just maybe some stuff that we missed, or I missed at least, and I don't know. It just feels like it was just kind of a bad performance for me, and it's not like we didn't know. Like it was just a mishap, kind of blip on the radar. We made some mistakes for sure. There's no doubting that, but I think it's enough to recover and look ahead to tomorrow. So that's what we will do. Again, I actually have some pretty interesting takes, I think, going into tomorrow. Um, so yeah, I'm excited. Let's talk about these games. The first one up is Paris and LAG. I guess I could bring up the odds for tomorrow. Have a nice little four gamer here as well. I guess one thing we can do kind of quickly overall. I think I want to start with these by looking at the slate more as a whole. That way we can have a better idea of kind of what we think about the teams when we get there, rather than the other way around. So right off the bat, I think the big one again is that we are on a Atlanta FaZe slate, so they're going to be absolutely gigantic favorites, especially against Seattle, who's just completely fallen apart. I legitimately think at this point that Seattle is either the worst or second worst team in the league. It's a toss up between Seattle and New York. I think they're arguably like 1A, 1B when it comes to being the worst teams in the league. And that, I think you guys can kind of get a hint of my idea of when I say I think it's between those two teams, and I'm excluding Paris in that. I'm actually relatively excited. I'm a little hesitant, but I'm kind of excited for this Paris team. We'll talk about that when we get to the game more specifically, but so we have huge favorites in FaZe. Very likely to, I think, to get to the sweep bonus, which does matter. I think the um, that is something to look forward to, or something to take note of. That FaZe, whenever they're on a slate like this and they're huge favorites, it's going to be slate warping, just because they're probably going to be the highest owned players. They're all going to be super expensive. It's just going to lend itself towards an automatic style of build. So yeah, and then I think we actually have another pretty big favorite here for Los Angeles Thieves, against the London Royal Ravens. Although London did look somewhat decent yesterday against New York, I think that was more so New York being just kind of bad. I was hoping that they would have shown some level of improvements, but they just are not, and they're out of it. And just based off of things like how Clayster's tweeting at the moment, like Neptune looked pretty down. The team just looks completely in shambles. Like they're kind of already mentally out of it at the moment. I was hoping that maybe they would have been able to regain some confidence and just kind of, I don't know, regain some level of mental sanity. But it looks like the kind of pressure is still there, and they're still kind of crumbling to it. I mean, it's kind of understandable. Again, I don't know. I don't want to sound too harsh on them necessarily, from the mental aspect. But when it comes to, we're trying to make money from betting slash daily fantasy, that's just kind of the reality of the situation. So looking really, really grim for the New York guys, and I don't think London looked that great either on the other side. I don't think going down from Gizmo to Paul X is that big of a drop off. I think Pollux is still a pretty decent player. Um, Probably one who deserves to be in the league regardless. But it's still kind of messes with the whole chemistry thing. It messes with just I mean, it is still a downgrade, so you have to recognize that. Um, yeah, I mean, there's just a good amount of stuff going on in this slate. Minnesota versus Toronto have no. Um, Minnesota, Toronto have no hard point success really lately. As we know, Toronto was the team that got top 4 at the tournament without winning a single hard point. I believe Minnesota's hard point is looking really suspect lately as well. So that's going to be one to kind of keep an eye out and look into a little bit. But yeah, I think overall the slate's going to be pretty decent. Let's go straight into the first series, Paris Legion versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. On one side, we do have LAG, who just came off of a pretty devastating, like low level, really, really bad performance. And then we have Paris, who was borderline the laughing stock of the league last season. Only one series win so far in the entire game, which is pretty crazy to think about. Yeah, I mean, we don't have the LAG stats from the Major 2 qualifiers so far, but I don't know. It's still tough. Like, I think overall, there's not going to be much in terms of statistic that point you towards anything other than, excuse me, that point you towards anything but LAG. I think LAG with Gunless being pretty affordable at 8K, Asim at 7.8, their overall numbers are pretty impressive as well. The same reason that we ended up on LAG yesterday. They have good kill death ratios, all that stuff. It looks pretty heavily in their favor. It all makes sense. It's just really hard to get away from LAG. Although I do think these teams are much closer overall in terms of like skill and like winning equity. I think Paris is more so a like money line bet team. I really don't like the upside that they have for DFS purposes. John is an extremely scrappy player. He's like kind of like Vivid, but maybe a worse version where he's going to be super aggressive. He has a extremely hyper aggro play style where he tries to hit routes and play the game in an interesting way, and he just doesn't have the most kills. He has a lot of good impact in the game, but it doesn't translate well for DraftKings scoring. We don't really know that much about Jimbo and Gravity. Again, that's something maybe I kind of glossed over a little bit, was that Paris dropped Fellow for Jimbo. I think this is going to be an upgrade. That's why I kind of like the Paris team a little bit going forward. I think they have a good chance to start picking up some series. I think this one is a very winnable one for them as well. We've seen Temp start to pick it up. Gravity actually looked pretty decent for them as well. I think they do have some serious upside and some ability to start winning some series here. Against LAG, definitely winnable as well. I'm just gonna go ahead and take the underdog shot here with Paris. This is again, I feel like this is kind of similar to the New York situation, but I think this one is a little different in the fact that there's pretty much no pressure on Paris and all the pressure is on New York. When you have players like Crimsix, Clayster, Hydra, even Neptune to some extent, the expectations for that team are just always going to be high. Like, Clayster and Crimsix are arguably top 5 Call of Duty pros of all time. I would imagine Crim is definitely in that conversation. Clayster's arguably there, top 5, at least top 10. I believe he even kind of quoted himself on that. So I think overall, when you do look at that and you have 2 gigantic Call of Duty names and you just kind of expect them to compete and challenge for titles, and they're looking like a bottom 2 team. So the drastic level between what they're supposed to be and what they are is the problem. So when you flip it around on the Paris side, they've been expected to be the worst team in the league pretty much all the length of this game's title. So I think that's just the big difference there. And I think, again, Gravity looked pretty decent. They're bringing up another top amateur player here with Jimbo. I think they just have a little bit more upside and a little bit more ability to show something. I think they have more. Their ceiling just seems higher. That's all. And again, this is going to be a spot where I want to get in early, a little bit before where people kind of adapt and stuff. I do understand the numbers and things probably are going to be super tough to get behind, but I like giving Paris the shot here. Again, LAG have been super bad, and this is one of those things where if we look at the league and as a whole, we can look at the teams. Maybe this isn't the best way to break it down, but when we look at the top, we have Atlanta FaZe and Optic Texas. Those are easily the best two teams in the league. LA Thieves kind of behind them, London a little bit behind them as well in that second tier. Then I think after you have those four teams, there's probably a good bunch of teams in the middle. Teams like Toronto, Boston, maybe Minnesota, maybe Florida. Then at the bottom, I think you have New York, Seattle, maybe Paris. I'm not sure, but the kind of antithesis of this point is I think Paris is probably the 10th best team in the league. So I think New York and Seattle are probably worse than them, as crazy as it sounds. And if we're looking at where LAG is, they've looked like the 8th or 9th best team in the league. So it's like, is the 8th or 9th best team in the league that much better than LAG? Probably not. And if you guys remember during the Major 1 qualifiers when Paris was like a plus 800 underdog or something against Seattle, I use the same argument. It's like the difference in these teams really is not that much. So getting a minus 230 on LAG is a little crazy. Again, the DFS upside is a little concerning. But that's just kind of where my worries stop. I just think all the upside's there with Paris. I think they have a lot more ability to show some positive progression here as a team. Temp's been playing well. I kind of liked what I saw from Gravity, and it'd be pretty hard to play worse than Fellow did if you're Jimbo. So I like Paris. I think the gap is pretty close there between these teams, so I'll take the underdog shot here for sure. Jeez, I have the sneezes. London versus LA Thieves. I think this one actually is a little bit straightforward of an LA Thieves either 3-0 or maybe 3-1. I think London's Search and Destroy is still looking pretty good. Same with Control. I could definitely see London maybe stealing a map, like stealing a second or third map, stealing that Search and Destroy or the Control for, like I just said. I think when you look at hard points, it's definitely going to be favoring LA Thieves pretty heavily. LA Thieves are already one of the best hard point teams in the league, and sorry, I just lost my train of thought. They were already one of the best hard point teams in the league, and then London ended up having to, swap out the player and stuff. They just didn't look 100% yesterday, and if Los Angeles Thieves were already going to be the favorite in a regular matchup, and then you have them hindered a little bit by missing a player, I think the combination of all those things, I feel like LA has a lot of the upside here, the LA Thieves, just to clarify. So I like LA Thieves a lot. I feel like they're going to do pretty well in the respawn game modes. They're going to be able to rack up some DraftKings scores. It's a good spot for them. We'll look at maps here. That's something I need to continue to remember to do. because the maps do matter. We saw it with Bocage yesterday. Capsule put up 54 kills in a single hardpoint map. It's just on Bocage. It's just a crazy numbers coming out of that map at the moment. If you don't have Bocage, I think you borderline just like X out the series. Like it really is that big of a thing, and that's the thing to remember when we do look at a London series. London bans Bocage. That's the map that they've been taking out of the map pool. We'll talk about that quickly in a second, but I know this is jumping around a little bit. I forgot to mention it. Paris versus LAG. LAG's bans have been kind of across like everywhere. They've been kind of scattered. They've banned a few different maps a few different times. Paris looks like they definitely want to try to get to Bocage. I think it's the map that they're currently picking and trying to get onto. It makes sense for them. I think that the Bocage style helps Paris a little bit more. If I'm looking at Paris's maps and what they should ban, I'm not entirely sure. It's hard because they do have two different players now. So they obviously got rid of Fellow, got rid of Decimate. They're bringing in Gravity. They're bringing in Jimbo. So who knows? Maybe their preferences have changed. There hasn't been much time for them to change, but you never know. Again, the point kind of is like Bocage has played their most played. It's not like their stats are good on any of them, so it's like, does it really matter? I'm not sure what they'd ban, honestly. Maybe they just ban Berlin because that looks like it's one of LAG's better maps. That's probably what I would lean. I mean, I don't know if I'm necessarily scared of LAG going on to Kabuto or Tuscan. Maybe they ban Tuscan out because they've been 0-3 on it so far. I'm not sure what exactly they ban, but I know Paris will not ban Bocage. What will LAG do? I'm not sure. They might ban Bocage, but the thing is, this is the first series of the day, so we will get the map set out for this game. Usually somebody discovers it about 30 minutes beforehand, or not. I'll try to look around tonight because it's a weird thing, but the way people find these map sets is on the Call of Duty League website. There's like a match ID thing, and you just have to keep changing the number at the end of the URL to find the right match. It is 4 digits, so it's like, I don't know, it's a whole thing. Like, you can find it in advance. It's just hard and random. I'll probably try to do that tonight so that we have these prepped for tomorrow. But we will know the maps going out of this Paris LA series. If it's Bocage, I'm going to be a little bit heavier on Paris. If there's no Bocage, I'm going to have just some sprinkles of Paris. Looking at players, it's tough because Gravity and Temp are more expensive than the LAG guys. I think if anything, that kind of just will skew the ownership a little bit more, even more towards LAG. I'm still not that scared. I might sprinkle in some Jimbo even just because there is that unknown element of his skill level. But if I'm looking at Paris, it's definitely Temp. He's been the number one player for them for sure. And maybe mix in some Gravity. I think they only have 2 series with Gravity. Yeah, but I mean, he put up good kill-death ratio numbers here. Not that great in the control, but I mean, they were 0-2, so... Yeah, I mean, his numbers are looking decent. You know, they got rid of Fellow. His numbers were really bad. Same here. I think this is just going to be a pure upgrade for them. I'm pretty excited for Paris. I already have a Paris Legion bet, a couple of them actually. I have a Paris 2-0 weekend because Paris actually do play again on Sunday, and I like them in that matchup as well. So I've already kind of had my mind made up. I'm excited for this team. I think they're going to look a lot better. I've spent so much time talking about them here, I just realized, but you know, it is what it is. I'm going to lock and load some Paris we'll see the maps come out in advance. So keep an eye out on that. Follow me on Twitter. I'll try to keep you guys updated, or you guys can just search it, whatever. Don't care for followers that much, but about 30 minutes before lock, we should be seeing the maps here, and we'll keep an eye out. If there's bocage, I'm locking and loading some more Paris. If there's no bocage, we'll probably go a little bit lighter, try to just mix in some value stuff with like Jimbo or something. But yeah, I like Paris here to get this upset. Then resuming back where I lost my train of thought when the LA Thieves London series. Again, I think this is just pretty heavily in the LA Thieves side. They've been a lot better. They're looking much more lethal. I'm excited for this team overall. I think they're going to be super strong. You look at their hardpoint record, they're 14-3. That is absolutely silly levels of good. They're super strong in this game mode. Again, their bane has been the search and destroys, and then obviously the Tuscan control. They're 4-0 on Gavutu control. They have really strong AR players. They even Envoy's been super strong on there as well. But I think the point still stands that the respawn game mode should be heavily in LA Thieves' favor. Neither team is strong on Gavutu control or on Tuscan control. I would imagine LA would try to I'd imagine if London wins the coin toss, they'll go to Tuscan control because LA Thieves are 4-0 on Gavutu control, 1-4 on Tuscan. So it's definitely looking like Tuscan is the much worse control map. We, again, unfortunately won't know. These maps, at least, anything past the first series, we're not going to know. Maybe if you guys are doing stuff like prize picks, then it does matter. You can look into that stuff. But yeah, I think for LA Thieves versus London Royal Ravens, definitely just have to lean LA pretty heavily. They are not cheap at all on DK. That's definitely one thing that sucks. Is LA super expensive, Atlanta super expensive. It's hard to get both. Yeah, I think LA definitely just a bit much better side here. I could definitely see London stealing like a search and destroy, like LA Thieves search and destroy is not looking good at all. But the hardpoint record there, 14-3, just insane, and a lot of it will come down to the coin flip. I do think, granted, given that both of these teams are pretty bad at Tuscan and they're both better at Gavutu control, you would assume that whatever happens on control, they'll both go to Gavutu. And then quick bocage check. London currently just banning it out. That seems like to be the map that they're banning. I know they are working on it, and that's a map they are going to probably incorporate at some point. That's at least what Zero said, I believe, on stream at some point. I don't know if that happened like now, though. We'll have to see that change before we kind of adapt. But for now, the only thing that's happening is London's banning bocage. Based off of their record, I'd imagine LA would ban Berlin. So that leaves Gavutu and Tuscan. Those are still decent hardpoint maps, but we can look. Yeah, I mean, those are both really, really good for LA Thieves. That's a really fantastic pick and ban for them, getting them set up pretty well. And I think, again, when we take into account the maps and stuff, it's just tough. It's just really tough for LA or for London in this one. So yeah, so far we have the Paris underdog. They're not even that cheap. Even we have super kind of chalky LA Thieves. I like them. We'll look at the players in a little bit, but I like them for sure. That arrives at the third series, Minnesota Rocker versus Toronto Ultra. Toronto and Minnesota. So we know the story here with Toronto. We kind of know the story here with Minnesota as well. Bad hard point. It's just kind of sad both ways, honestly. I don't know how else to kind of shape it like any other way. We have a 4-10 hardpoint team going against a 4-8 hardpoint team. 2-5 in control for Minnesota, 5-4 for Toronto, a little bit better on that side. These teams both play a similar style when approaching the series. Minnesota's record is slightly better, but that's pretty heavily carried by Berlin. I'm not sure if Toronto will end up trying to go to Berlin. I don't know if they'd ban it necessarily either, but This one's tough. I feel like this series is actually pretty close. I feel like these teams are very similar in the things that they do. Um, I'd expect these search and destroys are going to be pretty high level and fun to watch, but that doesn't really help us or do much for our DraftKings outlook and what we're looking at for DFS purposes. So, um, I don't know. We look at hard points. It's pretty tough, like across the board. They're both so bad. Um, Bocage check. I do think Toronto likes going to Bocage. That makes up 75% of their wins. I I don't know if Minnesota will ban it. I could see Minnesota banning it. They're 0-2 on it. They'll probably recognize that that's one of Toronto's better hardpoint maps. I could see then Toronto maybe pivoting to something like Tuscan where Minnesota are bad. I'm not sure. This one's really hard to tell. Um, if I'm Minnesota, I'm looking to ban Bocage, but that doesn't necessarily make it true. So I don't know. It's tough. I could see Toronto probably banning the Gavutu hardpoint away. I mean, Minnesota's 2-1 on Gavutu. They're 0-3. That's probably going to be their ban. For Minnesota, I don't know. It's tough. It's kind of a toss up. I could see them banning Tuscan because they're 0-3 on it. I could see them banning Bocage because Toronto's been good on it. So it's just kind of a coin flip there. We have a coin flip on Bocage. Both teams not looking that great overall. Check pricing. It's actually pretty low for most of them. If I'm looking for a team here, I think I might as well just go with Minnesota. Here, let's look at just online stats because I do think these things matter. I guess online Toronto have been a little bit better. Looks like they have been getting that Bocage again a lot. I don't know. This one's so tough. This one's close. I would probably. I don't know. I think the value side is definitely the Minnesota side. I think they're pretty cheap here. Um, Looking at their hardpoint stats, looks like it's been Attach has actually been their best respawn player. He's 7,400. That's pretty affordable. Looks like Major Maniac has somehow been better than Standy even, although Standy's been a little bit better in control. Priest has got bad numbers across the board. So it's looking like Attach and Standy are the two. They are a little bit more expensive than the rest. I do think mixing in some Major Maniac would make sense. He is pretty cheap. He has some decent hardpoint numbers. But his control is looking bad, and overall I think Minnesota has a bad control record. Toronto has a decent control record. So if you think the control will go to Toronto, their hard points are close. I don't know. This one's tough. I think this is going to be a game where I'm pretty low on it either way. I might have like a one-off Minnesota player just because they are cheap. There are some good values there. But even then, on the Toronto side, they're not expensive either. You could definitely get to a player like Bance, although his numbers are looking down. Maybe you can get the Kleenex. Toronto's kill shares are pretty flat. Same for Minnesota. There's not a lot to love in this series at all across the board. I don't know. This one's tough. I think this is just going to be a stay away for me completely. Maybe I'll one off like a Kleenex or a Bance. Maybe like somebody like Attach. Maybe a Major Maniac if the money gets there. It's tough. If I'm gonna pick a side, I'll slightly lean towards Toronto. I think they're both pretty bad in hardpoint, but the control is definitely in the favor of Toronto. So that's one out of the three respawns we're looking for. If they manage to if they manage to get there and do decent on the hard point, and then they win the control, then you're looking at a 2 respawn wins there. So that definitely helps their DFS upside a good bit. Although I think this is close and I could see it going either way. This will be an interesting series for sure. Tell us a lot about these teams. Probably just going to be light on it regardless, no matter what. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I really just hope Bocage makes it through. It would make sense for Minnesota to ban it, but it's not guaranteed. And I don't know. We could have a situation where yesterday where LAG let in Bocage and they got punished. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Seattle, Atlanta. Not a lot to talk about here. I don't know why I closed the tab, but the reason I talked about the other games so much is because this one you don't really need to talk about. I think they're minus 1,200. You can see it on writings on the wall here. I definitely think this is a phase 3-0. I think Seattle have just completely fallen off so hard. The wheels are completely off at this point. They're in complete tatters. Like it's really bad for them. FaZe, as we know, are one of the top 2 teams. They're going to be competing and contending to win it all this year. So, yeah, I really like that. I really like the options there. And then another thing here is we know FaZe like a Bocage. I think Seattle are fine playing it as well. So yeah, we look FaZe 5-0 Bocage. We know they're going to try to get there as often as possible. Typically, they're going to try and ban Berlin. When it comes to Seattle, I'm not sure what they would ban. I'd reckon maybe they ban Gavutu and try to get onto Tuscan. That's been one of their better maps. So if we're looking just quickly off of this, FaZe probably ban Berlin since that's their least played. They're probably banning that actively. Seattle, if it's not, there's no Berlin here. They have a few Bocage games, but their Gavutu's looking bad and Tuscan is bad. I'd reckon they would ban the Gavutu. Maybe Seattle bans the Bocage, but I don't know. That seems that one's again a little bit of a coin flip. But I think this one. I think this one's a little bit closer and maybe a little bit more odds of the Bocage coming through because we know Seattle at least have been playing that. I mean, 0-2 on Gavutu, that doesn't necessarily inspire confidence either. So, not 100% sure. There's not a high probability of Bocage here, but probably a decent amount. So, Bocage check good there. Obviously, pretty much all the FaZe players are fine. Simp has been stepping it up. Simp, BZ, Celium, they're all in the 9Ks. It is a tough scene for the FaZe guys. But I think they're all fine. I think they're all viable for sure. Everyone except for R-City's probably. But even then, his numbers are looking okay. Yeah, I think that's it. Bocage maybe, but it's not guaranteed. So, yeah, I think that's going to be kind of what we're looking at. A quick player check. We actually did find this yesterday in a Twitch stream. I believe the Twitch stream is CDL Sportsbook or something. And shout out to them. I enjoyed hanging out with them yesterday before the games. And this is a kind of a quick, easy website to look at players on certain maps. So LAG Paris. We don't have stats really here, but we can look at select map, Bocage. We'll go temp. So as we could see here, putting up some decent numbers, definitely pretty good yesterday. No shame in having bad numbers against LA Thieves and Optic, that's for sure. But even then, these are not bad stats by any means. Averaging 33 kills, 32 deaths. I mean, we'll take that from temp. That's definitely some decent numbers there. Look at John. 26 and 32, that's pretty bad. Again, even against Florida, didn't have great numbers against Boston. Not loving that from John. So he's already a stay away from me in the first place, but definitely going to be like that for sure. Gravity only played the once with them on LAN, and then obviously Jimbo is yet to play at all. LA Thieves London, we know that if memory serves, I shouldn't have closed this, but team stats, we know it's not going to be Bocage. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained today, so apologize that the length of this video is kind of getting out of hand, but I believe the consensus I came to was London going to ban Bocage, LA Thieves probably going to ban Berlin, so we're looking at either Gavutu or Tuscan. I don't know. I'd imagine LA Thieves will probably go to the Gavutu. I think that's been their more confident one. So Gavutu hard point for Kenny. 24 and 22, not ideal. Stats aren't looking that solid. Envoy, 24 and 22, about again the same. He does have a little bit more spike performances, couple 30 bombs there. Trying to think. Octane. Wow. Well, that's not right. He definitely did not have a 114 kill game. So these numbers are definitely skewed. Let's see. Yeah, these numbers are definitely incorrect. Definitely did not have a 114 kill game. So we will not know what his actual numbers are. But based on the rest of these are not good numbers. So I would assume that those are not either. I'd imagine maybe a 14 and 23. That would make sense. So overall, we're looking at pretty bad numbers there for Octane as well. Then Draza right there already. 21 and 21, so not great there. Although their kill or their win record is looking pretty nice, these numbers are not. So that's just kind of the tough thing there. Again, 50-50 chance we go to Tuscan. Those are much better numbers for Draza. Positive in all the maps. They played phase twice, and those are good numbers. So maybe that's kind of a coming down to a coin flip, which is disgusting to say, but that's kind of how the picks and bans and stuff are working at the moment. So that's a real thing that we're gonna have to worry about and think about this year. Kenny on Tuscan, 25 and 25. Those are not the greatest stats. Not loving that. Octane, 24 and 23. Those are okay. Not loving that really either. Envoy, 26 and 26. So, man, these LA Thieves numbers are not looking ideal. I don't know. I think maybe LA is the one I try to avoid. I think if I'm picking between LA and Atlanta, I'm probably just gonna unfortunately just lean towards the Atlanta side. Maybe I'd go with the Draza side and hope that he can get a Tuscan, where apparently he's very strong on. So maybe that's a way to approach it, but not a lot to love from that side. Toronto, Minnesota. Do I even want to go over this one? We can quickly look at it. Toronto, Minnesota. Look at their maps. Whoops. So we know Toronto should ban Gavutu. Minnesota will either ban Bocage or Tuscan. I'm not sure, honestly. So I'd imagine they could either play Berlin, because I'd imagine Minnesota would try to pick Berlin. So then it just comes down to whether or not Minnesota want to ban Bocage or Tuscan. They should, in theory, ban Bocage. We could look anyway. So Bocage for like Kleenex, 33 and 33. Bance, 30 and 32 on average. Pretty crazy numbers. Cammy, 32 and 30, pretty decent. He had one really strong performance, two really strong performances there. Insight, 26 and 26, not looking great on the Bocage, on the cage for Insight. What was I just looking at? Oh, the Minnesota side. So, Priesta, 28 and 35, pretty bad there. That's really bad. Standy, 30 and 35. Jeez, they're getting torched on the cage. Attach, 29 and 29. That's okay. Who is the last player there? Major Maniac. Actually, decent on Bocage numbers, 33 and 30. Positive both these games. So decent, maybe a decent shout there to just try to get to Major Maniac and hope it is a Bocage. Again, kind of depending on the coin flip here. Like, Toronto or Minnesota should ban Bocage. Will they? We don't know. It's just kind of a essence that we're not aware of. So, yeah, I mean, we just don't know. And then again, for the final series, Seattle, Atlanta, we don't know what maps they're going to come. Atlanta, Seattle. There's a chance we get Bocage, but we're not sure. Seattle could, in theory, ban it. Atlanta should ban Berlin. I feel like that's a pretty good guess. When it comes down to maps, man, this is just tough. I could see Seattle just kind of going with the Gvutu because that's 0-2. Just get rid of that. So I don't know. We'll look at we'll look at phase for Bocage as well. Like, might as well. Simp, 33 and 28. Those are crazy numbers. He's had really good maps on this. Celium, 33 and 23. That is just an absurd kill ratio. Holy moly. A BZ, 33 and 28. A little weaker, but still very strong. RCDs, 26 and 29. Yeah, a slow AR map is definitely not Bocage. So I don't know. That's tough. I don't know. I kind of want to try to wrap this video up. I feel like I've been rambling nonsense for a little bit too long here. So quick recap and run through. I like the Paris upset over LAG. Moneyline makes more sense than DFS, but I'm still going to be firing them up in DFS, especially if they do end up playing Bocage, which we will know before lock. So I think Gravity and Temp are going to be the top two options, but I will probably mix in some Jimbo because I think he is the lowest price player on the slate. He is. I think he can do enough to try to pay off that price tag. I think he's relatively underpriced. And if there's payoff spots I want to get to, which there is, I like LA Thieves. I like I like Atlanta and LA. So I like the opportunity of what Jimbo gives me. So and probably firing up everyone on Paris except for John. Definitely does scare me. LA Thieves versus London. This one again is pretty tough. LA is pretty expensive. They've been doing pretty well. There's no arguing that, but we're not going to get a Bocage. I feel like LA should roll over them, but no Bocage. It's pretty tough. Really is. It really does make that much of a difference, guys. My approach for this one is I'll keep them open, but pretty unlikely I'm going to get to them. I might just have like very little to none of this series. I don't know. I'll try to get to some LA Thieves, but it's tough. And in terms of players, they're all four viable. It really comes down to who kind of does it on the day. Envoy would probably be number one just because he has been putting up really good DFS numbers overall. Then Draza probably number two, Kenny number three, and then Octane 4. But it really could be any of them. I'd probably just try to get maybe a Draza one-off because he is so cheap. And we did look at the coin flip possibility of him getting onto the Tuscan hardpoint where he seems to have been playing extremely well. Toronto, Minnesota. This one's tough, but I think the idea for me at least is probably just going to load up on the Minnesota side a little. Again, I think I'm looking for some salary savings here. Even if I do take the big underdogs in Paris, they're not even cheap. So I want to try to get some savings here. I feel like, again, this is a really close series. I could see it going either way. A slight lean for the Toronto win and upside because they do win those controls. But I like the savings I'm getting with Minnesota. I could definitely see them getting there even in defeat. Options I like from Minnesota. I like Attach, probably number one. Again, the stats he's been putting up are pretty decent. He's 7,400. That's pretty cheap and affordable for sure. Major Maniac, probably number two. He's super cheap. And again, we looked at I think he was doing pretty well on the Bocage. If they let that through, then that'll be a decent map for him. 6,400, pretty easy price tag to pay off as well. Then Standy probably number 3. He's supposed to be the best player on this team. He hasn't been playing it like it necessarily, so if he does step it up a little bit, he was comparable to Hydra, but obviously he just has not been performing to that level, so it's a little tough. So I like mixing and matching probably all of Minnesota, but leaving off Priesta most likely. Seattle, Atlanta. I love all of Atlanta here. It's tough to get away from them. They're all super expensive though, so it's tough. I'll see what I can do with this team, but it's really hard. Everything just points heavily so heavily towards the Atlanta guys. Simpa, BZ, Celium for sure. Arcides even at 86 is a pretty hard price tag to pay off. He's been pretty bad personally, so yeah, I think Simpa, BZ, Celium, you're gonna want to try to get as much of them in as possible. It's super tough. You probably can only get 2. And even then, that's going to hinder the rest of your lineup pretty heavily. So it's going to suck, but I think it's going to be a necessity you're going to have to kind of pay and deal with. So, yeah, spent way too much time talking about this slate today, so apologize. Didn't have everything kind of in order and just a little bit of a bad performance for me today. But, things are rushed and everything, so my apologies. Hopefully we can be a little bit better about everything tomorrow, but I like the ideas we have, and although yesterday's result was pretty poor, not arguing that, I think there was still some positives to gain, and I think buying into Paris early can pay some dividends. Just maybe taking the shot with Minnesota as well. I think they make a lot of sense. Then mixing and matching with those favorites, LA Thieves and London, LA Thieves and Atlanta. I think those are both in good teams and very solid spots. So yeah, that is going to be it for me today. I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully pray for some bocage for our players. That would help us make some cash. Definitely makes a big difference. So keep an eye out for maps. We'll only see the first series, but definitely will matter a lot. So, yeah, that'll be it for me tonight. Hopefully you guys managed to get something out of this video, and I will see you guys tomorrow.